Hey everyone, I can't wait for you to meet Gavin Mosley. He is my go-to expert when it comes to benefits, and what a timely conversation that we're having, Gavin, because I have been asked by so many people, including media recently, about how do we keep up with this compensation challenge and this war for talent, so to speak. And I actually think there's a lot of opportunities to look at reimagining benefits. What do you think? Should we jump into talking about the trends that you're seeing now and what we could do to be able to attract and retain great people? Are you game?
I'm game.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So, how have we traditionally thought about benefits in Canada, maybe even around the world, when it comes to that total compensation package?
You know what? I've been in the industry for over 17 years now, and the industry is flipping on its head as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Benefits is usually a pretty sleepy industry. It hasn't really moved much over the last 5, 10 years. Plans look and feel the same as they always have. The major difference is they're almost double the price that they were 10, 15 years ago. So that's a problem for small to medium sized companies. And maybe 20 years ago, they would have been enough to really engage an employee. But now I'd say they're seen as a bit of a floor.
Yeah.
Well, of course you have benefits. What else do you have?
Right.
What about your plan makes this better than the plan I'm leaving? Right.
Yeah.
So we're also dealing with a very savvy group of job seekers who
Mm-hmm.
are
We are.
digging in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that the HR community that I work with has gone from kind of checking a box, yep, we've got a plan, to we need a really good plan. And we wanted to do a great job of mental health while we're at it. And so the
Mm-hmm.
conversations are changing. And So we're working pretty hard to help provide solutions and strategy, not just product driven. I mean, there's a lot of things that you don't need to spend money on to do a good job of, recognition being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's becoming more holistic in how we're talking.
It sounds like the challenges that the ability to attract and retain great people has actually led to an incredible opportunity, because I suspect that being a sleepy industry has been a worry that you and other progressive benefits experts have looked at this and said, oh gosh, we could be doing so much better for people. You could be putting yourself out there in front. You could be helping to make sure that people stay well proactively. How have you seen this current challenge as the opportunity that you've been waiting for to have different benefits conversations?
That's a great question. I'd say my entire career, I would go in saying this plan is going to help you attract and retain your key people. Yet I'd work with some organizations and the plans didn't do that. And
Mm,
that's where I started scratching my head. What was I saying something that was true? And maybe early in my career, it did. Now, not as much as it used to. And when I say that, we're going to work with you on a strategy, companies are spending real dollars on these programs more than they ever have in the history of the last 20, 30 years. And I'm not sure that they are attracting and retaining people the way that they used to. And the plan of the future, I think, is a much more human element to it. In that it's not just little pots of money divided up on a spreadsheet, and that's really the old school way to do it. Here's your pot of money for this. Here's your pot of money for that. We're changing it to really more focused on what's going on with your employee this year.
mm.
And if
Looking and studying and understanding and paying attention to what is the current employee experience. I think that's what I'm hearing. And in the benefits world, which of course is what hopefully we're seeing and people are doing outside of the benefits world too. Is that fair to say? The people you're working with are really paying closer attention to what's happening now versus an anniversary date is when they look at their benefits?
Absolutely. It's almost an ebb and flow based on who they're trying to hire. I've
Mm.
set up more than my fair share of emergency benefit plans. As we've hired somebody next month, we told them there's a plan, there's no plan, we need a plan. So that's a real thing that happens, especially in the high tech startup community. No, those are fun and challenging all at the same time, but um, we don't want. We like to talk about strategy. We like to talk about how benefit plans are part of something bigger, part of
Yeah.
a compensation strategy. How do you show your employees that you really appreciate the hard work that they do day and night for you, so that your dream of running your company will be successful and profitable and all those good things that keep you up late at night? But your employees, they're doing this for you because they believe in you and your vision as a business owner. So, um,
Well, and not everybody who will be listening and watching are business owners. So, what advice would you give to folks who are coworkers, who are middle managers, to advocate? And maybe you have other suggestions beyond advocacy, so that there is an embracing of a more dynamic, engaged benefits conversation and strategy.
that's a great point. So the decision makers aren't always the person at the top. Engagement happens at all levels of an organization, big or small. And we're finding that the shift in employment, um, people aren't people. We're talking to some people who are taking pay cuts to have less stress. We're talking to people who are being forced back to work, that doesn't work for them and their young families, so they're taking less money somewhere else. That gives them that flexibility. Another no cost way to recognize good employees. You don't need to buy a plan to do things like that. So all of this mixes and weaves together, and we used to pick one plan for an entire workforce of people. When you're most of the time in the small to mid space, most enterprise level plans, union plans are flex in nature. People can get what they want. They've got complicated, robust technology behind the scenes that needs to be staffed. So small companies really couldn't get that customization, whereas now they can. Technology is getting better. Even a small company can have 5 generational cohorts working in the same office, and to pick one thing that's going to be great for all of them doesn't exist, in my opinion.
Right.
The industry needs to change. You can't have a 27-year-old who's single sitting beside a 50-something-year-old with teenage kids, equally enjoying the same benefit program. So this is where the market's going. Is you've got, and people aren't retiring either.
Right.
That's the other piece. Is 20 years ago where people 65, I'm out. That's not happening as much now as we used to see.
Yeah.
Not to mention retiree benefits are more or less non-existent right now. So people are working longer. They're keeping their benefits. So strategy needs to change with these trends.
So one of the things that I'm curious about, having worked in my previous roles when I was in the corporate space, was often in unionized environments. And although, to your point, there was more teeth behind that, more strategy, some flexibility in terms of you have this much money, you can use it towards multiple things. We have had a lot of conversations offline about the next version, the next iteration of flexibility, which is flexible for everybody, not simply those larger organizations, such as having a much more robust menu that could include life coaching and maybe a gym membership and shoes. And tell us a little bit about this, what you imagine as a more standard and very dynamic employee experience driven benefits approach in, let's say, 10 years from now. What will we be talking about?
Everything will be needs based, bottom up decision making, in my opinion. So with some of the trends we're seeing in DEI or diversity, equity, inclusion, health and dental plans by their nature are, I'd say, mostly reactive. You
Mhm.
know, I've gotten sick. I need to go get my medicine. I've got hurt. I'm in pain. I need to go get treatment for it. Where the programs are lacking is in prevention, and enter the wellness world. Enter a very large menu of wellness providers who are digitally enabled, robust
Mhm.
clinical backgrounds, and it's still early days, a little bit of the Wild West, lots of consolidation right now and M&A in the wellness world, but wellness
Mergers and
is,
acquisitions,
yep,
M&A. Yeah.
M&A, sorry, yep, a little
Yeah.
bit of jargon there. So we see, um, just from an inclusion standpoint and a philosophical standpoint, how to set up a plan. Why does somebody need to get sick to start leveraging the plan? Why
Mhm.
can't they use a plan to not get sick in the first place? We see that as the future in benefits. I mean, when we take a few steps back, why are we all here? Why does a company buy a benefit plan? They buy plans to bring people in, keep people there when they're in, but also happy, healthy, productive workforce, right?
Mhm.
If you have a large proportion of employees who are in pain, or who are burning out, or dealing with issues with a dependent or loved one in their household, everybody, us included, we're all going to deal with personal and emotional problems at some point in our lives, and we don't leave those problems at the door when we walk into the workplace.
Mhm.
We bring them with us, and they sit with us all day long while we're trying to serve our customers with a smile. So,
And I think that what we can encourage us to all consider is both to your point around what are people bringing in the door and what do people need to be able to do their best work, to be able to even simply do their job, let alone perhaps even their best work. Because sometimes what we're going through, doing our best work is not what the standard is. It's doing work that is well enough to serve our customers and fulfill a role. And how can we be the hero to our workforce, anticipating that everybody has struggles? Some of the things that you've mentioned that I never even thought about having as part of a benefits plan are things like a lawyer, having an access to a bunch of lawyers, because if you are having a divorce or legal troubles or something's happening in your family's life, or your circumstance, maybe positive, joyful things as well. It doesn't have to be, reactive. And if I associate my employer as helping me in the moments of the greatest pain and the greatest joys, then I am probably less likely to leave them, or I'm certainly going to take a sober second thought. Do I really want to leave this employer that has helped me by having a great boss who has my back and my listening ear, supportive colleagues, a benefits plan that helped me navigate and have access to resources and make that experience a little bit easier to deal with, to be compensated fairly so that I could navigate that time. It's almost like really what true total benefits and compensation looks like, because I think you used the word the whole person, the holistic, person. We have to remember that people remember how you make them feel, not necessarily what you say or do. It's not that benefits package that we hand over on day one and we hope like, okay, they know they've got a benefits plan, go ahead and submit things through this form, which by the way, might take a long time. And how do you know that that was received? And all, like, I could think, I remember I was stressed having little tiny children, having to go back and check to make sure benefits were covered and all of that stuff. And instead now, like, I can go in and look at my healthcare spending account and see, was it processed and was it done right away? And imagine if people had that much access and make their job, their life easier in this busy world. Imagine if you're going through a really difficult situation personally, and the system that you helped an employer to set up allowed them to have access to mental health, legal well-being, all kinds of other services that they would need to access. Is that a pipe dream, or could that actually be something that any employer could explore and even possibly set up in even one of those emergency plans that you talk about?
absolutely, and especially in the small to mid-sized space, um, where they might not have a fully robust HR team. We find, we might be dealing with an office manager or the owner themselves. And even when we are dealing with full HR teams, um, it's often the case that we need somewhere to point to. We've in the insurance industry, every broker has their stories. We're often maybe second or third in line to hear about terrible things happening to good people, and that's just a reality of our job sometimes, where somebody's dealing with an addiction at work, and even a very tenured HR person is having trouble. What do we do with this? And so when you've got programming, robust, clinically based programming sitting behind you to point to that doesn't cost anything for the employee to engage in, gives you a lot of process to work through together as a team. And it's often this layer of middle management, these team leaders, they're the ones that are first in line to notice, when somebody's off their game. People that are 2, 3, 4 layers up don't know. It's their team, it's their team leaders. So that's another challenge that we face, is making sure that, it's one thing for the HR team to know what the roster of services available are, but it's another thing for all the staff. Nobody reads the booklets. We're not we're not blind to that. I mean, our industry has the same legal jargon, 80-page long booklets that they've always had, which nobody reads. So, in terms of helping people when they need it most, we're just starting to see this now, where old school is, here's your booklet, go read it when you need it. We're starting to see some idea of an initial triage, and someone will come in and you'll be asked, what's going on? And then it starts this conversation, and you might have a nurse at the other end of the line. You might have a mental health specialist at the end of the line, depending on what type of programming you're working with. And then it could lead through there. So it could be, you use the example of a lawyer. They might be having a pretty tough day in the middle of a divorce. And that might lead to a whole bunch of different needs. And, each one of those needs might cost $200, $300 an hour retail. So for people that may be financially vulnerable, people that are living paycheck to paycheck, they might just not have that money sitting there to go and get what they need in the moment. And I used to, early in my career, think about, well, if someone's making $100,000 a year, they're rich. Most people making $100,000 a year that I talk to now are also living paycheck to paycheck, just like people making $50,000 a year. So this isn't just, let's call it a working class benefit. It truly is for everybody.
And it sort of makes me think about going back to that diversity, equity, and inclusion component. This is a way you bring financial equity to your workforce, that by having a much more robust, inclusive benefits plan, you don't have to have somebody at the mercy of hoping that if they're going through a divorce and they can't afford an expensive divorce lawyer, that they will be able to access some counsel. That if you have somebody who is going through a health crisis, I mean, our healthcare system, arguably people could call it a sick care, not healthcare, because it is, to your point, it's also, reactive and less basis of prevention as well. As wonderful as our healthcare system is, it is funded to respond to health crises. Imagine if people who genuinely wanted to take care of themselves, and they knew that their family has a history of diabetes or breast cancer or any number of things, that they could tap into their benefits plan to be able to access supports and resources that maybe they wouldn't be able to get access to in a publicly funded system or in a traditional benefit structure. So it's, that's the other thing, I think, for companies who have a very strong belief in bringing a more altruistic, humanistic, and equal footing to their workforce. It's not just training, it's not necessarily just a policy, it's everything that we do for and with our workforce, our middle manager workforce, as well as our direct people who are directly adding the value. So, what would you say for those who are, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, for those who are genuinely ready to reimagine, they maybe don't know how to bring all of the things that they believe in, like greater diversity and equity through benefits and greater opportunity to attract great talent and greater opportunity to retain people of all generations. And it's really new. Looking at benefits in this way is really new. What is their first and their next step on this journey?
First step is to let them choose. Let people pick their own plan. I think companies spend a lot of time guessing, scouring through claims data on trying to pick the best plan for the best dollar. And I don't know that that's really the answer. I think implementing the element of choice, letting people make a personal decision for their family, is step number one. Step number two, and we've talked a little bit about financial health today. This is the underlying unspoken issue of within all companies. There are always going to be people in any company who are struggling financially. And we've crossed a line in affordability in the benefits world, in my opinion. Our plans are hundreds of dollars a month for an average plan. And if you have a family, and I don't think necessarily making an employee pay a significant portion of the premium is really a benefit for many employees, and especially in these inflationary times. So I think if there were two things that, if a company is looking to start to make that transition from old school benefits to new school, introduce choice, have an option where the company pays the entire premium, where you have a workforce regardless of income. There's always going to be that safe spot where you might give a cost of living increase one year, where you do have that split premium model. I mean, that can be eaten up by an increase in a disability premium. I've had that happen where the benefits cost rose so sharply in a year, it outweighed a cost of living increase that they said was there, but the employees didn't really feel it because of the volatility in benefits. So those would be, I think, the two things that I would love to see for most Canadian employers to start to think about adopting. Startup companies, they have this wonderful clean slate, setting up a first-time plan. I work with a ton of startups, and I like to fast forward them through. Here's the plan if you wanted to start up 15 years ago, what that looks like, what it costs. But why don't you fast forward and get through how those might not work for you just anyway, and get here, right? Choice, have a plan that you're paying all of. There's no friction there when you're bringing someone in, regardless of their personal finances. I've had people crying in an owner's office because they didn't budget for a benefit plan that was being introduced. And in a one-size-fits-all approach, the answer to that is you work here, you're on the plan. It's a mandatory plan. Sorry. And I'll be very happy to never have another one of those conversations again. So when there's choice, when there's always an employer-paid option, there's something for everybody.
And that comes right full circle back to recognition. When we listen, when we value, when we ask questions, that is an engaged employee right there. And so why wouldn't the benefits discussion be part of an engaged workforce approach? So maybe the very first step for employers and human resources folks, people who are in a position of accountability when it comes to compensation and benefits, and also in a decision-making capacity, to go to their benefits provider. So those of you who are watching this, if that's your role, if you're thinking, I don't know how much longer we can afford this, I like what Gavin says about not putting too much of the financial responsibility on our employees. We want to be better able to adjust to the workforce of today. Contact your benefits provider if they don't have the ability to flex and adapt, and if they're really pushing you to not change and to keep with a plan that just does not attract and retain the best people in a way that is engaging the way you're trying to be in the rest of the work that you do with employees and middle managers, then it may be time to shop around. And if you are watching this and listening to this and you are maybe not one of the decision makers, and you see that there's a great opportunity, what forms do you have? If you're on the health and safety committee, you're on an employee engagement committee and an employee resource group. If you want to talk with make an appointment with your HR person, talk to the person that you report to, and have a discussion, because people can't make change if they don't know it's a possibility. And many of us do not realize. I didn't know until I got a chance and the privilege of knowing the innovative stuff that you're working on, Gavin. So every one of us has an opportunity to build a more engaged workplace, one that is respectful of all, one that recognizes the uniqueness of each individual, and the benefits approach and the compensation approach is part of that holistic package. So what do you think? Do you think that those are good places for folks to start in building on what you had suggested, Gavin?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, and it doesn't involve a plan overhaul, which is the nice side of things. These types of decisions don't mean you're changing everything all of a sudden. You can ease in, do it all in bite-sized chunks, little bits at a time. I think the benefits industry as a whole loves to go slow. And that's okay. That's why they've been in business a long time. So I'd say finding the right balance of insurance, recognition and wellness accounts, partnering with really robust, deep wellness partners. That's really the bundle that we see becoming the norm over the next 10 years. Still considered progressive in nature. I've got some old school broker friends who say wellness doesn't work, but until it does work. So it's something where there's no one wellness provider doing everything. The ones that we work with go a million miles deep and an inch wide. They're so robust, so specialized in what they do. You have to bundle a whole bunch of them together to get everything you need. And that's what nobody's really doing right now. And so we're watching this trend very, very closely, assembling wellness providers in strategic ways, and that'll do different things. Some mental health focused, some physical health focused, some financial health. We're keenly looking at the caregiving market right now and addressing the specific needs of people caregiving for elderly parents, for their children, for their pets, and dealing with the unique challenges that caregivers face that maybe other employees don't. So a lot of these themes and benefits are popping up, different needs that are being addressed in different ways. And, a menu of pots of money for massage and physio are good, but they don't do everything. Not for all employees. So, these are some of the trends that we're watching right now, and we really appreciate you helping us uncover these together in the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is one of many ways in which we recognize and we value people. So it's been a privilege to stretch outside my normal conversation of recognition to talk very concretely about people strategy with you, and how we need to have some strategic and hardwired conversations into our budgets, into having some of the tough conversations at these decision-making tables about, do the things that we want to do and the things that we say we're doing truly translates into what it shows up in the booklet, what we put on our website when we're trying to attract people. And so this is such a powerful topic right now. And given we're talking about compensation and how do we pay and keep up in this time, especially in context of inflation, as you had mentioned, this is part that we're all going to be looking at this. If we're not already, everyone who's in a decision-making capacity, who's listening to this don't look at it like this is another complicating factor. Look at it like perhaps benefit could be the solution that you're looking for, because first mover's advantage. You may be one of the first people in your industry. Perhaps if you are trying to keep people in your industry, by your benefits package representing the needs of the workforce that you are listening deeply to what their needs are, you may in fact find that you are that shining star amongst all of those other options that they have out there. So thank you, Gavin, for helping the rock stars that I have the privilege of serving in my community to understand how benefits is one of the many ways that we can recognize and value the people that work so hard to do the work that we do every single day. Thank you. And I'll make sure to include your contact information below.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you having me in.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye.